Yeah, absolutely. No, which is good news. So let's get into the book. Talk. Just give me kind of an abstract. Give me kind of in your words, if you wanted to get somebody out there, their brain wrapped around where you were going, how would you do that?
Well, this book, Turn Words into Wealth, is really about how typically the message that we send is not the message that's received. But with
Right.
a bit of training and understanding the neuroscience of communication, understanding the 3 steps, anybody can become a better communicator. And that, in my experience, there's nothing more valuable than being a better communicator.
Yeah.
So, then I've got seven different recipes for generating 7 figures as a thought leader with a book or a pitch. And there's examples in the book, Turn Words into Wealth, but I can give some examples live. And,
Yeah.
the intention would be that anybody who listens will come away with actionable stuff they can do right now to
Yeah.
improve their communication. How does that sound?
That's wonderful. And I think the thing that is intriguing about this is that
Mhm.
you would figure for as much as we talk and communicate, that's one of the hallmarks of us have being one of the few animals on this planet that can do that.
Yeah.
How much we misconstrue each other and what we're
Yeah.
saying and how we're saying it, and how we do need to harness the power of our words.
Exactly right. And I have a little 27X story
Okay.
that emphasizes that. So we could get into that. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds great. Yeah, I'm ready to hop right in. So, talk to me a little bit about how you've had you're kind of a chameleon in your careers and where you're at right now. How did you get to a point where you were like, this book needs to be written. I need to communicate this with the world.
This particular book,
Yes, this specific one. Yes.
I just got so frustrated because on average, first time authors spend 3.5 years writing a book and then they drop the ball right at the finish line. And the book does not achieve the results that it so easily could have if they had tested the title, if they had tested the cover, if they had a call to action, if they let people know what their main business is at the back of the book. And so often these things are missing, and it just felt like a tragic waste of potential.
Yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about how you specifically constructed these ideas, the 7 ways. How did you get to a point where because there's probably so much material that you could have covered. How did you get to a point where you whittled it down to a very understandable blueprint for someone to follow?
Well, I didn't start off with it being all clear and concise, but in my own life, I have first by accident used a book to build a 7 figure business. And then I launched this little book, Marketing Fast Track, which was really just a transcribed 1 hour interview to
Yeah.
pivot my business. And this book generated $250,000 of new business in 90 days. I'm like, oh, that worked. I guess
Yeah.
people want help with their marketing. And
Yeah.
so while this was a transcribed 1 hour interview tidied up, this book, Turn Words into Wealth, is much more in detail research. There's links to videos and stuff. And I wanted to give people several recipes that I've successfully used, like generating $250,000 in 90 days from a 1 hour friggin' interview. How did I do that? I gave them their recipe, showed them how. Um, how did my clients, some of them grow their business from 1.5 to 6.5 million just by having a book and become paid public speakers? How did those dentists do that?
Yeah.
And then some examples from famous people, like Hillary Clinton and Bill Gates and dyslexic people like Richard Branson. Richard
Yeah.
Branson is dyslexic. How did he write so
Wow.
many books? Or
Yeah.
Starbucks founder Howard Schultz.
Yeah.
The Howard Starbucks makes about $20 billion more than the number two, Pete's Coffee. It's hard to say how much of that came from Howard Schultz being a compelling speaker and author, but
Yes.
certainly there would be something. And then
Yeah.
the other thing that frustrated me, sorry, I'm going on,
No,
but
you're
the other
fine.
thing that felt wrong was that most people believed a whole bunch of myths about publishing that politicians and celebrities have known other ways to do things since the time of Churchill. So Churchill didn't write all his books, he dictated them.
Right.
Hillary Clinton doesn't write her books, she dictates them,
Uh-huh.
and but most people felt that they couldn't, that they had to do it all themselves, that they had to make, they just didn't understand that, you know what, why not do it the easy way? So that's how I help people. I interview them and turn it into a book. But even
Yeah.
if people don't work with me, they can talk through their idea.
Yeah. Well, and technology has made that so easy, and it's a part of the AI and the speech to text. You can literally do that. I mean, we
Yeah,
have the disposable time, and if you drive, you can do that, and you can dictate, and then you clean it up later on.
exactly right. In fact, curiously, this book was actually initially 5 videos.
Yeah,
So I talked through 5 different success stories, my own and my clients. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of content. Transcribed that, and that was maybe like a third of the book. Obviously, I added more research and more stories,
yeah.
but so many people can do that.
The interesting thing about wealth, and you talk about seven figures, for most people, there's this fear, there's this commitment, there's this unknown that goes into getting wealth. How
Yeah.
do you help people get to the point where they don't think about it in such a magnanimous way? They think about it as more of a something that can actually happen versus some pie in the sky.
I think we make the amount of money that we expect to make. So a lot of it is actually mindset,
Yeah,
not strategy or tactics. So the first thing I would recommend is that consider your mindset. Remind yourself of all your successes. Remind yourself that you are a worthy human being. And then the second step is it's not about you lining your pockets at the expense of others. It's about solving problems and making a difference. So when I work with my clients, I only take on clients that I believe I could create a 10x return on their investment. So
yeah,
that means, like my company, Same Page Publishing, is devoted to launching thought leaders with best-selling, award-winning books that make a difference.
yeah,
And my filter is they need to make a difference, want to make a difference, and have some kind of business to monetize their message. If you're writing, I know you have a little haiku book, but generally a haiku book would not be an example
right. No, it won't.
of a big money maker.
Not going to happen ever. I know that very well.
You know that from firsthand, but still, it's fun that you have a book, a
Yeah.
haiku book. I wonder if you want to write another book, maybe with some of your art in it, would be kind of cool.
Actually right now talking to a local publisher about I've been writing poetry for a long time about doing that.
Yeah.
And I do actually have an art book. If you go out to it's out on Apple, and if you type in my
Oh,
name, it'll come up. So I did that years ago. And it kind of goes
okay.
through the different things. But anyways, yeah. But yeah, definitely hike.
Right.
That works a little, that might be a little bit more profitable than haiku.
Yeah, so that's my filter when I bring clients into Same Page Publishing is, are they ambitious about making a difference in the world? Do they have a message that could solve a problem for somebody? It could be solve a problem if it's a nonfiction book, you want to be solving problems. I think entrepreneurs solve problems at a profit. So we're in the problem solving business. Um, and I have helped a number of people with their fiction books, in which case the criteria is this going to be entertaining, inspiring, and uplifting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But isn't the real solid cornerstone of a good entrepreneurial playbook is that you're trying to solve a problem, and you're not doing it for the money. It's that you want to solve the problem. And by proxy, money will come in if it works. But isn't that the best mindset to go in with?
Yeah, that is the best mindset to go in with. I invite people who might be thinking of pivoting their business or starting a new business to ask themselves 3 very simple questions. What do I love to do? What am I really good at? And who is that worth the most to? So often we want to filter just because you're good at something, if you loathe and despise it, don't build yourself a trap.
Yeah.
You don't want to also start a business as something that you're still learning. You want to have expertise. You want to have already solved that problem, not be flailing about. You don't want to drown as you're trying to help somebody else get to shore. You want to be a strong swimmer and be a lifeguard.
Yeah.
But then many people fail to ask the question, who is that worth the most to?
Yeah.
So that's why I launched Same Page Publishing. I've had multiple other businesses that I started from scratch, and many of them generated 7 figures of revenue. So I have a track record as a problem solver and a successful entrepreneur. But after I got my MBA in 2015, I realized that would really be fun to help people with their marketing, their messaging, to help them write books, launch to the next level as thought leaders, get on podcasts or TED Talks. And that's who it's worth the most to. So
Yeah.
while I could help almost anyone refine their message, me being clear who my ideal client is helps me make a difference and helps me also generate that 10x return on investment that I'm committed to. Like when a client sees that they've generated millions of dollars from working with me, they're happy clients.
Yeah. For sure they are. For sure. So I'm curious, in the 7 ways to make 7 figures, what's one of the ways that pops to mind right now that holds a special place?
Well, let's talk about this little book, Marketing Fast Track, that people can get on Amazon or wherever books are sold. It's called A Little Book That Launched a New Business. I was in the business of training coaches at the time. I had a company called the Grief Coach Academy, which I've since sold, and it's being run by Audrey White. And more people were coming to me asking for help with their messaging, with their marketing, with their book publishing. They asked me, how did I get on radio and TV? How have I been so prolific with my publishing business? And so I wanted to do a quick market test. So this is another mindset that I recommend. Instead of making yourself a 5-year business plan, why not just test the market and see if your idea has any legs? By legs, I mean not just as your mother and brother think it's a great idea, but are people willing to pull out their credit card
Yeah.
to indicate they think it's a good idea? That is the only evidence that really matters to an entrepreneur. So what I did is a friend of mine who was at the time the director of coaching for Tony Robbins, Mark Von Musser, he had previously interviewed me to share my techniques about grief coaching with his coaches. I asked him if he'd be willing to interview me about marketing and messaging. He's like, absolutely. I know you've launched a bunch of businesses. Most people don't know you that way, but I'd love to get that content. So I choreographed the interview. In other words, I gave him the questions to ask me, although he could ask me anything. Um, I gave a live talk to about 100 coaches, Tony Robbins coaches. I liked how the content went, but I had choreographed the interview. I didn't just blah, blah, blah. And transcribed that, turned that into a little PDF to begin with. With the PDF, I got on ABC TV because I had previously been on ABC TV, and I'm like, I have a new book coming out. Then I also offered the little book to my community who knew me as the Grief Coach Academy founder. So
Yeah.
there weren't people who were there to get help with their marketing, messaging, and book publishing. But I said, hey, if you'd like this little book, the book is free, but you need to pay shipping and handling. So they got the opportunity to get the book for $4.77, which created a slight loss for me. But they had put their hand up with a credit card. So they had indicated interest.
Yeah.
Then people would get the book in the mail, and they'd also got a series of 5 videos explaining some things that were useful to them about setting up a marketing funnel, about a marketing message, about how to publish a book. And then if they wanted more help, they were invited to have a business breakthrough call with me. And as a result, in 90 days, that little book was the engine that triggered $250,000 of new business.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't that I sold the book for $250,000. It was
Right.
the lead magnet that began a waterfall of me adding value, building know, like, and trust, building credibility, and offering a solution that was a higher ticket item, obviously, than a book. So Marketing Fast Track is one of the examples of the 7 examples of how to use a book to build your business. And I would say this is a good example because it dispels the myth that you have to work on the book for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
The book is actually a transcript. It's he said, she said.
Yeah.
It's not, very fancy, but there's useful information in it. It's a quick read, but full of useful information. And it launched what effectively could be conceived as a 7-figure business. $250,000 in 90 days is $1 million a year.
Yeah.
So, and that was because of that book. So that would be one example. Another example would be I've helped people refine their message so that they could pitch and raise capital. And they didn't even necessarily have to have a book, but I worked with them one-on-one and at my events to hone their message. So I think fondly of one of my clients. Tarney Williams is his name. He launched a company called Blueprint Reality, which was in the augmented reality and virtual reality space in Vancouver, BC, Canada. And he's super smart and very charismatic. But at the first day of the first event he came to, people were like, well, I know I like him and I know I trust him, but I have no idea what his business does. And by the end of the first day, people in the audience were investing in his business.
Yeah.
And now that company has raised 7 figures. I'm not sure if it's got to 8 figures yet. And, he got much more compelling and articulate, because most people make the mistake. They have so much expertise. They start the conversation like 14 steps down, whereas the listener is like, what? I just dropped my kid off at school, or I just finished talking to my accountant. What are you talking about? Augmented reality and virtual reality. So
Yeah.
that would be, another example. And then this book, Turn Words into Wealth, would be a third kind of example. So this book is more the evergreen bestseller kind of idea. So
Yeah.
Turn Words into Wealth, it's like blueprint for your business brand and business, business brand and book. And it shows you how to create multiple streams of income and influence. The book is very solid. It won the Outstanding Nonfiction Book of the Year award and several other book awards. I do not withhold anything in the book. There's also links to more resources, including video training for people who like to watch or listen as they learn. And my typical client reads my book on Amazon, then books a business breakthrough call with me at bookcall.biz. Then I find out if they're my ideal client and if it's a good fit. And typically, their next step after that is to engage me to work with them. And many of my clients are still working with me 15 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that my marketing funnel is just do podcasts to add value to the world in general. But a certain percentage of people who listen to the podcasts will be like, oh, that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll read Turn Words into Wealth. And then after they've read the book, they're like, oh, this sounds like just what I need. I want
Yeah.
somebody to help me with this. They don't need me to help them with it. Turn Words
Yeah.
into Wealth is not a bait and switch. It is a complete book that shows people how they could do it themselves. But a certain percentage of people are like, yeah, I just rather have you help me do
Yeah.
it. So that would be another example of how to use a book to build your business. And uh, uh, 2 more examples real quick. The most lucrative career is speaking.
Yeah.
You need a book to be a speaker. It's kind of like you need an MD after your name to be a doctor. And you need a book to be a public speaker at a certain level. So Hillary Clinton makes $250,000 per talk, which is not bad pay for an hour's worth of work.
Yeah.
Another example, though, would be David Goggins. Do you know who he is?
Huh? Yep.
Yep. So he's dyslexic. Writing is very difficult for him. So he worked with a writer who he credits. So it's not a ghost writer per se, which is often how I work with people. I get some kind of acknowledgement. And he went to a New York agent and was thinking about taking his book Can't Hurt Me to a big publisher or maybe self-publishing. And the agent scoffed at him and said, well, if he self-published, he'd be lucky to sell 5,000 copies at most. But David Goggins decided that he was going to independently publish or self-publish because he didn't want to lose control of his own story.
Yeah.
He didn't want to have to ask permission
Yep.
from somebody else or have to modify his true life story. So because freedom was one of his top values, he independently published. And then he went on a number of podcasts. And the result was, I believe he sold about 1 million copies of his book, Can't Hurt Me, and 600,000 copies of the audiobook in the first year.
Wow.
So if he had gone with a big publisher, he probably would be $20 million poorer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, he makes a handsome living by being paid to speak as well. So there is another example. And then a completely different example, we talked about it in the podcast in May. I have a series of fantasy books. First one's called Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse. The second one, The Secret Multiverse Academy, is coming out September 8th. And I'm working on the third one, Multiverse Mayhem, which will come out later this year. And I pitched BBC last month, and they're interested in turning it into a TV series. So if you have intellectual property that could be turned into a TV series, this is another way to go. I'm also working with a client, Michael Stockham. His book is Confessions of an Accidental Lawyer. He loved working with me so much on Confessions of an Accidental Lawyer that we're now writing 9 legal thrillers. I took him and several other clients with me to the Banff Media Festival because film and television is my background, and I wanted to help them pitch their projects.
Yeah.
So we've got interest in turning those legal thrillers into movies. He's like, I'd like to see him as the next John Grisham.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm in a unique position to help people to do, because it's not many publishers who are also in film and television. And I have other clients working on talk shows and other kinds of books. But what's interesting is you might be able to turn a nonfiction book into a TV series, as Marie Kondo, who wrote about the joy of tidying up,
Yeah.
actually got a Netflix series, even though English is not her first language, because
Yeah.
it was very interesting for people to watch people tidy up. So the TV series movie idea could apply both to fiction and nonfiction. So those
Absolutely.
are a couple of examples. And I think most first time authors make the mistake of assuming that all the revenue is going to come from the book. Of the 7 ways to make 7 figures with your book, that would be way number 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Certainly.
why not see if you could think through your business strategy first, so that you have more ways of monetizing? Like
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss, when he launched the 4-Hour Work Week, he didn't think the book would sell. And his monetization strategy was there are affiliate links in the book, The 4-Hour Work Week, that guide people how to hire somebody in India or the Philippines or what have you, or different apps that he used to be more efficient. And he would get an affiliate commission. So
Yeah.
that was his monetization plan. And many people could add some affiliate links to their book, or to their website. Joanna Penn is one of the authors I admire, and she's all about little affiliate links, a little trickles of cash, but from all kinds of places can really add up. So in addition to outlining the 7 different ways to make 7 figures with your book, Turn Words into Wealth also talks you through the 10 steps to launch as a thought leader, and how to break that down and how to think it through and how not to miss any important steps.
So anyone out there that's listening, that's curious, who should buy this book?
Anyone interested in anyone who has a business, anyone who is or would like to be a thought leader, anyone who has a book and hasn't monetized it. I think most people who are communicating for a living in some way or other, as a podcast host, as a manager, as a leader, would be really well served to read Turn Words into Wealth. Because it's
Okay.
not only about publishing a book, it's also about distilling your message. I call it your $1,000,000 message. What's your $1,000,000 message? And also to create numerous stories that add value. There was a great book called Significant Objects that showed that the value of adding a story to an object was 27-fold the amount of revenue. So anyone who cares about revenue or income and would like to consider some ways that they might be able to increase it, perhaps even 27 times,
Yeah.
without necessarily changing the fundamentals of their business or their offer, but simply changing and improving and enhancing the way they communicate about what they're talking about, would be very well served to read Turn Words into Wealth. And then if they want more help creating, publishing, and promoting a book and launching as a thought leader, they can go to samepagepublishing.com. They can get a free thought leader launch starter library. And if they'd like more help, they can sign up for a complimentary business breakthrough call with me or somebody on my team at bookcall.biz.
So to pick up the book, where's the best place to go to get it?
Amazon is probably the
Okay.
easiest place for most people to go get it.
Okay. Wonderful. This has been so good. You shed so much worthy light on that. Thank you so much. It's great to catch back up with you.
It's great to
And
catch up with you, Joe.
yeah, and yeah, you got my mind spinning right now because I personally have thought um I really amped up a lot of my podcasting when the pandemic happened with jazz musicians, and it was very fascinating. There was a lot of things that were very revealing that were a part of that process, and I've often thought it would be kind of good. But I think there's a level of pandemic fatigue too. I think people are at a point where they're just like, kind of ready to go into something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I got a copy of Magic Mystery and the Multiverse, and my wife absolutely loves it.
Oh, yay.
She
That
stopped
makes
me the
my
other day.
day.
She was like, "Oh my god, that book you gave me the other day." Because I sat down and we were looking through, and I said, "You," because especially in the summer, I said, "You need to read this because
Yeah.
that's
It's
right up her
great
avenue."
summer read.
Yeah, and she just stopped me and she was like, "Oh my god, she's really good." And I said, "I know, I know she is."
Oh,
So
that's fantastic. Well, tell your wife the second book in the series, The Secret Multiverse Academy, is coming out September the 8th.
yeah,
She just missed the Kickstarter, but I think there's some late opportunities there if she wants to grab an autographed
okay, okay,
Kickstarter book. You can let me know. Send me an
that's
email
cool.
or something. I'm glad that she liked it.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely love it.
wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah, no, and I'm looking forward to getting this out and getting people into turn words into wealth. It's wonderful. It's so great to catch up. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Joe, and I appreciate it too. Bye for now.
Thank you. Take care.